I'm really grateful for my career that it's basically been like a slow climb basically the entire time, because I feel like it's really hard for people. I think I can deal with it because I can deal with a lot of stuff online pretty well. But one of the most mind-destroying things are the big come-up moments, because you will never have an explosive moment where you explode and then you maintain on that explosion. You always explode and then you settle, but you settle at way higher than you were before that explosive moment. But a lot of people will get stuck on the peak, and a guy will average 1,000 view videos, get one video that does 1 million views, and then all of his next videos do 100,000 views, and he feels like because he doesn't have another 1 million view video, and he's like, fuck. And it's like watching people get destroyed by stuff like that is really sad.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier with talking about the road to getting to 10 million subscribers and stuff, and it's like that's not really something you can just steadily climb up to. It would take you 20 years, but it's like you got to have these huge magic moments that just push you to another echelon, and you're not necessarily, it's near impossible. My King Von thing's got over 10 million views, but it's it would not be feasible for me to pop out every month with something that's getting 10 million views.
But somebody who's as established as me, doing the same type of content for almost 10 years, it's kind of even if I did the most earth-shattering piece of content, even if I had a Drake interview tomorrow, 2-hour crazy interview that everybody in the culture had to talk about, et cetera, it's if right now we're getting 10,000 subscribers a month, maybe I would get 50 or 100,000 from that. But ultimately, the effect is not going to be that pronounced, because really, anybody who is interested in hip-hop interviews has probably already been exposed to my channel, and it's the idea of getting to 10 million subscribers when I've been stalled out near 5 million for so long just seems pretty unlikely. But let's say that there's think about the Fresh and Fit thing. Let's say that had been us, where we just pivoted into doing this other type of content where we're screaming at girls all the time. That's the kind of thing that could probably tack on a couple of million subscribers, because it's a totally different audience. But that same audience also is going to be why are you interviewing these random fucking rappers at the same time on the same channel? It's I don't know. And it's just less and less likely as time goes by that you're going to find that new niche that's going to explode. That niche is probably going to be carved out by somebody who's, newer or more established. But I look at something like Jubilee. They feel like they have the right mentality to constantly be aggregating and creating new themes and whatnot. And I was looking at their views, and their views were pretty steady for a while, and then they just had a couple explosive months from figuring out how to basically do the political 20 versus ones with. But it's funny how your shit, I think, got many times less views than Charlie Kirk, which is very interesting to me.
Okay, calm down.
No, but I'm not. I'm just saying it's more interesting for people to see a conservative shit on a bunch of woke kids than to see a progressive guy shit on a bunch of Trumpers. I don't know.
I don't think he got many times. I don't know if he even got twice as many as mine. Yeah, look the numbers up. Here, yeah. But I will say, I think for the Charlie Kirk one, I think that was the first one they did, right?
Oh, was it?
So that might be why the content exploded a little bit more on that one. But
Destiny, do you have a moment in your career that was the biggest explosion of outside interest? Was the election stream a really big moment for you that brought in new people, or was it were there certain moments you'd point to be that was a moment for me that really brought in a load of different people that maybe wouldn't have heard of you before and took you up an echelon?
Took me up an echelon. I think doing the whole Red Pill arc.
Yeah.
That was probably a bigger thing than the election stream. Had a lot of people on it. There was a couple debates that were pretty famous. My JonTron debate was, but I think probably the most fans that I've picked up through a whole pivot into different content was probably the Red Pill stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely when I became more aware of you and realized oh, this guy's not afraid to go on Fresh and Fit or go on, various platforms where he's not necessarily going to find too much to agree on, and actually do a good job of putting a positive face on what a Democrat looks like. And it occurs to me that a lot of the stuff that the Democrats are complaining about in the wake of the Trump loss is almost identical to the reasons why I liked your content a lot when I first got turned on to it.
Yeah.
And there's just so few Democrats, especially people in power, who are willing to be part of the podcast ecosystem. And I don't know.
So damn, apparently it was 24 million for Charlie Kirk's and 5.5 for mine.
Yeah, I didn't even want to say it when I looked it up.
Fuck you. You looked it up and you put it down.
I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but and I didn't even look up the Ben Shapiro ones. But but I don't know. There's got to be something about that. Well, in the comparison to that is we did a bunch of 20 versus ones that are female porn star and then 20 dudes.
Wait, you on
No Jumper or on Plug Talk or whatever. Nobody gave a fuck.
Debates or
no, actual regular standard 20 versus ones. Like,
What's a standard 21st
oh, you don't even
debate?
know about
Like
that? It's like basically like they're hugely viral. It'll just be like a dude, and then they get 20 girls, and each of the girls kind of like talks to the guy for a little bit, and they create a funny little moment out of it, and it'll be like an hour-long upload, and like every popular rapper gets this shit offered to him like crazy now. And I feel like Jubilee took that format and basically like applied it to politics, and it worked very, very well for them. But we tried to do the inverse, where we would have like a female porn star and then 20 random dudes, and I don't think any of them got more than like 50,000 views. Like, nobody gave a fuck.
Wait, hold on. I'm so confused. But not debating.
Speed dating kind of thing.
Speed dating. Sure,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But so like we tried to do the inverse of it, and nobody gives a fuck, because who's the audience? The audience is all young dudes who want to watch guys kind of sort of humiliate girls, or like at least like get some jokes off on them. And then that seems like it's got to be like the same reason why you talking to all these kids doesn't do as well as Charlie Kirk, even though like you guys are both probably like similar audience size or influence size, but
Maybe, yeah.
he's coming from like the perspective of the conservative, and that just seems like a lot more mouth-watering to their audience. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I'm surprised those videos wouldn't do better. I feel like people would watch for what do the guys
I thought
have
that
to do to have
too.
a good day
But
or
again,
whatever.
it's like the audience is all young dudes. They don't really want to see. They don't see life from the perspective of this like rich female that has a lot of power, enough to like get 20 guys in a room to grovel for her attention.
They want to see 20 chicks, really.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But Jubilee, they seem like they have a crazy machine. I'm kind of jealous of it, but then also when I think of the overhead of like how difficult it probably is to put together a lot of those productions, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to do that at all.
I feel like simplicity kind of wins in this space. Like, I feel like what you do, it's like, it's very simple, but it's like less is more, in a sense.
I would say that simplicity wins, but not for the reason that less is more, but more for the reason that I'm sure the videos that you do now, I'm sure you've worked out like a much better formula than your first. Like, I bet you can put out like a 10 times better video that's twice as long than when you first started doing it. Yeah. I think it's the fact that if you can do something, that's why I always tell people when they want to get involved in like content creation or whatever, like just whatever you do, just start doing something. Don't plan it forever. Because when you start doing things, you can iterate on it, you can make it better and better. Whereas if you're doing a big project, you can do it once. Like, I'm sure you've all worked on a big project where after you finish, you're like, fuck, there's like 20 ways I could have made this way better. And doing simpler things just gives you the ability to iterate on it more and more and more. So that's why it ends up being like a more reliable product. And people know what to expect and everything too.
Like the other day I had like a long drive, and I clicked on a YouTube video that was basically like you reacting to some Piers Morgan debate, and all of a sudden you're Googling like, you know, oh, he said that Kamala's team spent so much more than Trump's team. And so then you're looking up the super PACs and like trying to come to a more of a legit number in terms of like doing all that research to like figuring out all these like micro issues within that. And, you know, it's interesting, but also it's kind of like suited to the platform. Like, this makes sense for streaming.
Yeah.
As upload after the fact, it's kind of like less cohesive and makes like a little bit less sense. But then you think about the other end of that spectrum is like the PragerU videos that like take these hot button issues and like try to summarize it in like a 4 or 5 minute video or whatever. Like, do you think that if it was on you that you could create the leftist version of that, or is there even really like a market for that could be competitive with that type of thing?
Like, it wouldn't be impossible for me to do it, but it would require me to sacrifice so much of my current content, and it's like my brain is not oriented in that direction at all. Like, I'm sure there's stuff that you could do, but you're like, fuck, why? Like, when you already excel so much at like a certain thing,
Yeah, but I feel like that's the instinct for a lot of streamers is like, oh, maybe I could create something more like a media company that could kind of like create a system that could create content that was valuable or did well for us or whatever, and then
I definitely have. That's like my dream still. Like, the first step was like, because I talked about building a studio and doing a podcast for fucking years, so I finally have this place that I can work out of. So this is done, but finding like a person that it's just really hard. The next step is like hiring out like a full-time person to do a show that I'm not like personally starring in, or like I'm not talent on, so I can like experiment with that. But
almost anybody who could do that for your media company is somebody that would probably be better off doing it on their own.
Potentially, yeah.
Unless you were alongside them. Like, I find like that's the hardest thing to get over.
Yeah, that's definitely one issue, is fighting for space or like why the fuck would you be a part of my stuff when you just go spin out your own channel, obviously?
Yeah.
Unless it's somebody who stands to gain a lot from being on my platform. But then the paradox is, but do I want a person like that, or do I want, yeah? But even more so than that, because I wouldn't mind like a smaller person, like with room to grow here. My bigger issue is just that like I have a pretty stringent idea in my head of like the types of stuff I accept versus what I don't accept, and they don't like map on cleanly to any of the big political communities online. So if you ever throw your hat in my ring, you are super isolated on the internet, and you're going to be attacked by everybody, and it's like a very brutal place to exist in. So it's a challenging field to operate in.
I mean, in the wake of the election, it has kind of occurred to me that yes, maybe my political views like primarily overlap with somebody like you or Sam Harris, and it's very hard for me to imagine getting behind somebody like Trump because I've considered him such a bad actor and just so dishonest and such a terrible person. But I also feel like at this time, it's almost impossible for me to imagine the Democrats ever winning the presidency again. And it just feels like it's such a losing team to be associated with. And I don't really know that they have the self-actualization available to them to get past that.
I understand what you're saying. I will say that reality is constructed in the mind. And the feelings that you have are oftentimes feelings that you're supposed to be having because they're given to you by the people that are like kind of controlling the media environment. And conservatives are very, very, very good at writing media narratives and kind of telling you how you're supposed to feel about a given thing. The election was pretty close. Like people keep calling it like a blowout or a landslide because like on the night that it was called, there was a 15 million vote difference.
Right.
But I think that's down to a few million. It's like 49.4 versus 48.5%. Like Trump doesn't even have over 50% of the popular vote anymore. Not to say that it wasn't a loss, but like every single incumbent party around the world lost. Inflation was just like a fucking murder topic for every incumbent party basically in the entire Western world. So yeah, like do the Democrats have work cut out for them? Yeah, for sure. But is it like a hopelessly lost election that they can never come back from? I don't think so. Not even close. Like this was like one of the closest elections in the last like 100 fucking years of like presidential elections. It just doesn't feel that way because of how the conservatives market it.
But do you feel like the Democratic Party, like what is the proper like strategy going forward when it feels like someone like Kamala went so out of her way to distance herself from identity politics and all the extremist leftist stuff that like kind of permeates people's brains? Like even just yesterday I was watching, I forget what her fucking name is, some black lady who got called into Congress and Ted Cruz is yelling at her and he's trying to get her to acknowledge why there are men's and women's sports, and she won't give like a straight up answer because the straight up answer would be like boys are bigger and stronger than girls. And like I feel like stuff like that just sticks to the brains of people who are undecided, and they are like, oh well, this particular Democrat refuses to be logical or honest about this topic, so therefore that kind of colors my worldview of every Democrat, even though when you look at Kamala, it feels like she went very out of her way to not even bring up the fact that she was black or a woman.
Or what? Yeah, because if you remember the Hillary time, bro, breaking the glass ceiling and this, and like Kamala, I guess she was a black woman, but that was like never.
She's clearly cognizant of the fact that constantly talking about being a black woman is going to basically like close off a huge percentage of people to her because identity politics just becomes less and less palatable to people. Yeah,
I think obviously there's like a whole huge discussion you can have, and everybody's got their own like pet theories on why whatever is the way that it is. It's an opportunity for you to assert whatever you care about the most. I think when I looked at the things that happened over the last election and I look at the media environment, there's like two huge things that I think cause Republicans to function the way they do. One is they truly have no standards. There is no decorum. There are no like norms on the Republican side. They will go like as hard as they need to, and they have no accountability. And on the left, I think we had this kind of like delusion that like, well, as long as we like respect our principles and values and we never ever act mean and they go low and we go high, that's always going to be better. But one of the things you'll notice if you look at people going on podcasts, right, is that there's a whole ring of centrist and right-leaning podcasts. Well, Trump will go, he will never ever be challenged ever on a single thing. He won't. They're not going to Trump is not going to Tim Pool and getting hard questions. Trump on Joe Rogan was a joke. Okay. Trump obviously on Fox or any right-wing environment is going to be insanely easy, right? Meanwhile, if a left-leaning person goes on to any of these environments, that's going to be a rough interview. And in the left wing, you have this weird thing in the mainstream media where when Trump goes on, they're so like paranoid about being called like Trump derangement syndrome or whatever, that they're trying really hard to be like media fair, not called biased. And they're like letting Trump get away with so much insane shit. There was Trump gave the first interview to, I don't remember if it was ABC or NBC or CNN or whatever the fuck, but a few days ago, Trump gave his first interview. It was 45 minutes long. It was a fucking joke. It was, and even by the end of this interview, he was still calling this lady like mean to him, and she just let him lie with impunity for 45 minutes. Meanwhile, like Kamala, I remember Kamala and Walz gave an interview. I think it was CNN, where they're like sitting at a table, and it's like question, she'll give a response, and then it's like 1, 2, or 3 follow-ups, like digging into like what Kamala or Walz is saying, and it's like these are tough interviews, and she has to give like policy-oriented, detailed answers, and then explanations for why, as the vice president, she hasn't done a thing yet. Meanwhile, Donald Trump goes out with impunity and can say anything. One of the big talking points now is tariffs and how much we're getting fucked by trade, right? You understand that the trade agreement in place right now that we have with Mexico and Canada, the U.S. Mexico-Canada trade agreement, that market agreement, that was made by Donald Trump in his term. It was his upgrade from NAFTA. He was so proud of it. And now it's his number one criticism. How is he never called out for arranging that? There's that times 1,000 on every topic. Yeah. And there's no platform that holds him accountable. So when you're allowed to dictate the questions, like or when someone else is dictating the questions, you have like no chance. It's like you're fucked. Yeah. I think that was a huge issue, and it continues to be a huge issue.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question because I really loved all of your J6 coverage and just how much you really broke down like what that really was.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like, obviously the election went how it went, do you ever feel like there's like a vindictive Trump administration that might, have a bunch of media personalities that he wants to get revenge on and stuff like that? Like, because you went so hard at it, and the fact that he got back in is like, they're saying he's going to release all the guys that were arrested on January 6th or around that,
I mean, I feel like Trump himself is like a dog chasing cars. Like, I don't think Trump is very vindictive at all, actually. I think that Trump is very much like in the moment. Like, as soon as he got into office, he forgot about Hillary immediately. And I don't think it's because he's a good person. He was going to put politics behind him. I think it's just because he had new shit in front of his face.
He never locked her up. That would have been at least interesting to witness.
Yeah, he doesn't care once the thing is behind him. He doesn't care at all unless somebody's like fucking with him in that moment in time. So
in order to understand Trump, you have to kind of like be willing to not take a huge percentage of what he says at face value. Like in the lead up to the election, he was saying, we are going to aggressively deport 20 million people. And then now that, what's his last name? Van Homan or whatever, the guy who's like put in charge of immigration or whatever, is kind of saying something that's much closer to an actual strategy that might really take place, which is like, we're going to deport a lot of people who are, arrested for crimes and whatnot. They're going back to Mexico, but they're not going to be knocking on doors and like taking, illegal immigrant grandmas and
maybe,
shipping them home.
But then what the fuck are we even doing? What are we voting on? Like, it's not like, because Trump is not saying these things as negotiating. He's just like saying random shit. And then what he can actually do ends up being something totally different.
He's saying anything on camera to just get his opinion, just to get attention out there. And then when he gets into office, he'll just kind of do whatever he feels like. And then none of his fans really give a fuck about calling him out on it. Whereas if it was Kamala and she swore she was going to do this, it would be a totally different game. Yeah.
Do you think Trump's going to go for a third term?
I mean, I didn't think he was going to run for this term, so I have no idea. I mean, I would say no because he'd be too old, but that was the exact same answer I gave for this term. He has lost a lot of energy. If you look at him now compared to 8 years ago, it's pretty crazy how. But I mean, he's getting old, yeah. So I mean, who knows? If he was younger, I would say absolutely yes. He would try to change it so he could.
If you could press a button and he died, would you do it?
Absolutely. Well, actually, at this point, I don't know because now he's already won, so it's going to be Vance that comes up, and then all of the weird crypto bros that are not going to be like in control of the fucking country and everything. So, yeah, I don't know. It's insane, yeah. But I mean, hey, you know all about insanity. You guys fucking ejected yourselves from the European Union, and that's been a whole thing. So
yeah, it's been crazy. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on at the moment with like they're saying Elon Musk is trying to like usurp the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the guy, the Mr. Brexit, who's Nigel Farage. I don't know how much you know about UK politics, but like they're saying Elon Musk is going to inject like $100 million into the UK politics to try and get Nigel Farage to be the next Prime Minister, who's obviously was the architect of Brexit. So we got a bunch of crazy stuff going on with our politics at the moment, but I don't know. It's kind of like the UK is just a mess completely, so it's like I don't think anyone's really going to be able to do anything about what we got going on. But we got this whole migrant thing. We got the small boats. If you know about the whole small boats thing,
I know about the migrant issue. Yeah, because it's like it's sad because you guys were supposed to like Brexit was supposed to fix all of it. And it's like oh fuck, it's like higher than ever. Like we need workers so bad, and it's like
what's the small boat thing?
So a bunch of migrants, mainly we're talking places like Syria, Libya, all these places that have been destabilized politically by foreign policy over the last, like, I don't know, 5-10 years or whatever. You've got all these migrants that have basically like traveled across Europe, but because this is the theory is like, because the UK has such a welcoming like welfare system, and we have so many rights, we've got like nationalized healthcare. Basically, these guys, there's like these criminal gangs that are organizing small boats to bring migrants from France to the UK, and they basically do channel crossings. Like in the middle of the night, they go on some like tiny little dinghies from France to the UK, and once they're in the UK, they claim asylum, and we can't get rid of them. And basically, the government is housing them in like pretty luxurious hotels, because we already have a housing crisis. There's like massive low housing stock, so like entire hotels are basically being shut down, like taken over by the government to house migrants, and then they're basically being put there. And like we have the equivalent of like DoorDash. It's just all straight migrants that are just like illegally driving mopeds, delivering food, working in this shadow economy, and we just can't get rid of them.
Does that feel like it's like radicalizing the average person that's like your age that you went to high school with?
Hugely. People are pissed about the migrants. Like obviously you have the whole thing of like Mexico, the border, like close the wall. But like our thing is people are like, oh, we need to do something. Like we need to shoot down the boats. Like we need to send them back. But we can't. Like we have this whole asylum system that's very generous. And these guys, you know, the theory is that like, oh, they're throwing their passports into the ocean. So we can't even, they tell us they're from here or they tell us they're from there. We've got no way of verifying it. So we left the European Union, but we still have the European Convention of Human Rights. So we basically, you can't, like on compassionate grounds, you can't send them back. You can't send them anywhere. You can't do anything with them. And it's like a huge scandal. And it's like, everyone's pissed basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know what your perception is or how much you follow U.S. politics, but it's always funny to me that people in America are very keen to compare our situation sometimes with European countries. And I actually do think there are legitimate grievances to be had across mainland Europe and across the UK sometimes with immigrant-related stuff. But I feel like it's just so funny to me when Americans make the comparison because like our unemployment is insanely low. Our wages are all like insanely fucking high for comparable jobs. It's like I've got friends who joke about like, oh, programmer? Going to the UK for that because I know I can pay this guy like 1/2 of what I would pay like somebody in America to do the same job. So it's funny when Americans are like, yeah, we have the same issues just like in the UK and just like from, you know, that Germany and all these people have with migrants. And like meanwhile, like even our full like illegal immigrant population is like fucking fully employed. It's like so insane to me. Yeah.
What does the average woman that you know think of the trans issue in the UK? Because I understand, I've been told that the average woman in the UK thinks about this very differently, whereas in America it's like considered very impolite to have anything negative to say about trans women.
We have a whole political thing going on with the trans issue where it's like we had a very open, welcoming system, and then there's been a whole thing of like, basically, just recently they've banned, I think, puberty blockers being used on like under 18s, and then that's been controversial. But it's like, I think things have tilted slightly to the right, and like people are pretty anti-trans now on the whole, I would say. But it's one of these things where it's like when we had the last government, like when we had Boris Johnson, it was a whole thing of like the economy was going to shit, the COVID stuff was being mishandled, but he would pop out with some like mad anti-trans comment, and then like his conservative base, which would be like the equivalent of Republicans, would be like, yeah, he's sticking it to the trans people, like we love this guy, and without realizing like he's basically completely like destroying the economy like at the same time, because it's like it's such a like dog whistle culture of just like he's just got to diss the trans people, and then like there's a bunch of sort of right-wing conservatives that
Trump's on the same wave where it's like, you know, it's like such an irrelevant issue for most people, but it's also one where like if the Democrats seem like they're lying about that or like refusing to be honest about it, then that's kind of like enough for the average person to go on.
It triggers me so hard that like it's so obvious like what the game is.
Yeah.
And like I don't understand how conservatives like are so blind, or maybe they're all playing into it too. Because I saw the comments by Trump afterwards because they asked him about like I don't know if it was for swimmers or what, and Trump was like nobody in this country is trans. Like let's not talk about this. Let's move on to something important. I'm like, motherfucker, what the fuck?
So I didn't watch the clip, but you were kind of offended or turned off by Sam Harris sort of like fully going for that narrative of right after the election, he put out a podcast basically saying, like highlighting the trans issue as like this is the issue that if it didn't single-handedly lose the election for the Democrats, it at the very least was like, you know, massive.
I don't disagree with him that they were a big issue. I just wish that people would realize these are big issues because they make them big issues. And it's like I said, like Kamala Harris gets crucified for what was probably the correct answer, that the trans bathroom for prison inmates thing was basically like, well, are you going to enforce like the existing laws? And she's like, yeah, whatever. If this is what the federal prison system demands and these are the laws and this is what you do. And that was in like 2019 or whatever she made these comments. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, I don't know how there's a collective amnesia that the Republican Party, like the fact that Donald Trump could go up and say, are you happier now or were you happier 4 years ago? When 4 years ago they were living in fucking lockdown. What the fuck are you talking about?
I know, and I saw that when he was on the Jubilee thing, so that issue came up. Like, were you better off 4 years ago? And he goes, I guess I'm better off now than I was 4 years ago. And the whole room groans and like boos you for saying that. And I'm like, so you're telling me that none of you are capable of imagining one individual who's experiencing more success now than he was 4 years ago? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, how is this taken as gospel that everything is worse now than 4 years ago? Like,
or there are people that, when I was doing like these Twitter spaces, there'll be like a guy who's like, yeah, my life is way harder now due to like Biden's policies. And this guy, his story was that him and his wife moved to a different area to be closer to her work, into a house that was twice as expensive, and then he quit his job to stay at home and take care of their new child. And his explanation for why their life was so much harder was because of all the inflation under Biden. I'm like, what? Like, and I'm curious, like the narrative of your life, if this would have happened under Trump, would your story with the same fact pattern be, even though it's a little bit tight, we were able to make all these changes to our life, get a house that was twice as expensive, and I quit my job to take care of my kid, and we could do that under Trump. Like, even with the exact same fact pattern, it feels like the story can be entirely different. And yeah, the thing that I'm obsessed with right now, that I shouldn't be, because I just keep reminding myself in my stream, none of this matters, it's all bullshit, it's all theater, I don't know if anybody believes anything anymore. Conservatives at this point, their conspiracies are so wacky. They have like all these conspiracies that they believe in, and like they all like even contradict each other, right? So like now, like if you ask one, like COVID was a Chinese bioweapon that leaked from a lab that they were making to fuck with us. But also at the exact same time, like COVID is like this thing that isn't even real and isn't even like a bad illness. So what, is it like the worst bioweapon ever created? Or why did this hurt China more than us? Like this is like the dumbest bioweapon I've ever heard in my life. Or the idea that like January 6th was just a peaceful protest, like nothing bad even happened. But it was also like a Fedsurrection that federal officers instigated, and that's why there was so much violence. And it's like, there's so many of these theories. How can you believe in like all of these contradictory things at the same time? Like it's not even remotely, making sense. Yeah.
How important do you think the kind of Ukraine issue was to this election? Because I feel like there's a really big gulf in how people see it from the UK and the US, because we're in Europe and like that's going on just over there.
Well, I feel like Gaza like swallowed up a lot of the Ukraine energy as well. Like that would have been such a big issue if it wasn't for Gaza, right?
It's so funny because I feel like and I guess people's brains turn into politics. I think something kind of sad happened when progressives got a hold of the conversation about masculinity, because it feels like, are there toxic aspects to masculinity? Absolutely. And if you've watched any old movie or anything ever, every single boy coming of age story has to do with shedding your toxic masculinity and being a more responsible man, right? Whether it's like the game winning shot is you passing the ball instead of trying to score, or you like recognizing that you have to take care of your, someone else more than yourself, right? This is like every story, right? But somehow like all of masculinity comes under attack by progressives, and conservatives get a hold of that narrative. I feel like the same thing happened with America's reputation around the world with conservatives, where instead of rightfully criticizing U.S. foreign policy, where it should be, Iraq was a really big fuck up. It should have never happened for a variety of reasons on a variety of levels. But now the idea that America can do anything good at all foreign policy wise is it's very sad that like we won the Cold War. You got screaming at Gorbachev, tear down the wall, between Germany, we need to, reunite all of Europe, and America is like this stalwart defender of democracy. To some extent it was, and there were noble conflicts we were involved in and all this. And now this is like a moment that calls for the Reagan America is Ukraine, right? Where that should have been like Russia's going to invade Ukraine. Well, every single excess arm and every single ally in Europe, like Ukraine is going to have so much shit, they're not going to know what to fucking do with it. But we can't, because we're so cucked from Iraq, and you've got like these Ukrainian military guys who are sitting in a ditch waiting to know if they're going to get new shells because an immigration bill has been tied to their foreign aid because of the Republican fucking party. It's just like, yeah, America can't do anything good foreign policy wise anymore. Like everybody hates our foreign policy. Progressives hate it, and then Republicans hate it because they want to be isolationists. And it's like, well, fuck. This is like, if I want to ship something to China, I never have to think about that because I know that the U.S. military is guaranteeing that voyage from start to finish. But I don't know if that's going to be the same, 10 or 20 or 30 years from now. Who knows?
Do you feel like on the Ukraine issue, do you feel like don't you think it's strange how it's kind of like it was the Democrats back in the day for the Iraq War that were like super anti-war, we shouldn't be doing this, and like everyone, the Republicans wanted to fuck shit up in the Middle East after 9/11, but it's like now it's the opposite. Now the Republicans are like, we shouldn't get involved in Ukraine, and like the liberals and the left wing side are the people that are like, no, we need to go over there and fuck shit up. And like, I mean, I would agree with that personally.
It's crazy. I mean, he said it earlier. He wasn't joking. Like my background, my mom is Cuban. Both my parents served in the United States Air Force during the Cold War. My parents were the biggest Red Scare people in the world. Like my mom called them the Chi-Coms, like up through like Chinese communists and Red China, and she wouldn't call it Russia. She'd always call it the Soviet Union and shit. And now my mom is like, yeah, well, aren't Ukrainians? What about that bioweapons lab stuff about Russians? And I'm like, Mom, what the fuck? Why did we fight any war ever if not to defend like Europeans?
Well, it makes no sense, right? Because it's like the Republicans, they're so anti this war in Ukraine. It's like, yo, do you remember the Cold War? This is our chance to fuck Russia up. Like we could finish Russia if we really go hard and fix the Ukraine thing.
And that was the mainstream narrative at first. Was like, oh, okay, Russia is all bad. This is our chance to really like show Russia what we're made of. And then like very quickly, because the right has to be contradictory towards everything that's like the mainstream narrative, it became David Sachs making it clear that like, no, actually this war is bullshit, and RFK Jr. and like that just became like the prominent narrative was that in order to be a good Republican, you had to be kind of in favor of it.
You can't talk about this anymore because the side that does conspiracies is the Republicans, and they won't touch this one. But there is a lot of foreign involvement in that as well. Russia is very good at foreign involvement, but we can't talk about that because Republicans close their ears and just scream Russiagate. And that's it. And now that conversation is completely over, despite the fact that,
You never got like a Tim Pool offer? We're going to give you like $500,000 a month to like...
Absolutely not. No. No, I was uncomfortable even showing up on RT. But
wait, how did that get exposed exactly? How did we find out about all
our
these...
corrupt DOJ and federal investigators released unsealed indictments over it? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it also, just think about that. You've watched my content. Could you imagine if it came out that through some shell company I was receiving $5 million a year from Israel? Do you understand? Like my whole career would be fucking
right. I would rightfully expect a mass exodus from your fan base.
Yeah,
right?
and I would have to do a huge public reckoning. I would have to, and even if I was innocent and not knowing, at the very least personally, like, okay, well, fuck. How is it that my content so cleanly aligns with Israel that they funnel money through me without me even realizing it?
Yeah.
How the fuck did Tim Pool escape from that unscathed? That was like one day news cycle for him, and then he's like, whatever, oh, cool. And now he's like tweeting out like, oh, I bet the Krasensteins got paid for this tweet, and it's like, how shameless are you? Like, you should actually be like for fucking treason. That's an insane position.
But if you occupy, if you're looking out for your own best interest, don't you want to join the team that's never going to hold you to account no matter what?
I guess. Is that what a civil war is for? I mean, like, that's just insane shit. Like, this is like, that's treason level shit to me. Like, if you work in media, and also, I'm sorry, just because you're here and I can't talk to anybody in the industry about this, the numbers that he was talking about were fucking bullshit. And I hate that nobody that works in the industry he'll ever, like, oppose will ever call him out. A $5 million deal. He was $400,000 episode. Yeah, $400,000 an episode, $5 million for that year for a non-exclusive podcast that he would host on a no-name fucking YouTube channel with no other deliverables. Nothing else.
Craziest thing ever.
Yeah, and he's like, well, actually, yeah, no, that's pretty standard for my industry. Like, bullshit. You've never seen a deal like that in your fucking life. And it's not a coincidence that as soon as that deal goes away, he has to cut every other show that he does. And he's saying like, well, my people are unreliable about bullshit.
But I don't understand that, because it's like the amount of money that he must be making from YouTube and people paying for his memberships or whatever the fuck it is. It's got to be like more than enough for him to like have a studio with a couple of employees. Like, I don't understand how he felt like that would even, make sense to people, that he had to cut off all this programming, because the amount of money he was bringing in was so absurd from this one deal, getting $500,000 a month.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's such a crazy amount of money that any of us, if we were to get that deal from anyone, it's like we would immediately just be like if you told me that you had a deal like that, I would be astonished.
Or that deal would be like exclusive license. We get to own it into perpetuity, exclusively ours to distribute, and you're like on the hook for 1 or 2 years. Yeah, not like, can I host your YouTube videos and I'll give you like $100,000 a video just to like host them on my channel? That's an insane deal.
And he was like bringing that up to Dave Rubin on Piers Morgan, and Dave's like laughing in his face and trying to yell over him. And
yeah, and keep in mind the ultimate irony. is Tim Pool is supposed to be an investigative journalist. Why the fuck would you ever take anything this guy says seriously? This guy made half as much money as Hunter Biden did in the entirety of his foreign fucking income, who supposedly is like the criminal that Republicans have been investigating for 8 fucking years, and they haven't found a single fucking thing in relation to his work in Burisma on, right? And Tim Pool here is getting $5 million, funneled one company removed from the Russian government, and this how could you trust anything he said? How could you even take it seriously?
Treason's definitely the right word, because I just think it's insane. But we've got so much Russian meddling in UK politics. Like, there's so many sketchy things that have gone on, like secret meetings between Boris Johnson and this ex-KGB official and all this stuff, that it's just like, our politics is so corrupted by the Russian influence. It's just like way too far gone. But how influential do you think the Russians are in the US politics? Or do you think they're just eating up these talking points because they agree with them naturally?
I think there's significant influence, but I think the way that it works is they only have to push a little bit to see like a huge impact on what they do. Like, it's just so easy to like get us to fucking hate each other. You've worked out, right? Like, imagine your max bench is like 315. You don't have to push down 100 pounds to make the person drop the weight. You could apply 15 pounds of pressure to the bar and they're going to drop it, right? And that's what US politics is like, to where like, if I can get just like a few accounts to start like amplifying news about Iman Khalif. I never knew so many Republicans in the United States knew so much about women's boxing, okay? Women's Olympic boxing. They all became like so invested in this issue overnight. These are people who like, 1 week prior were like, the WNBA should be abolished, okay? And now, and you just have to like start these little itty bitty wedge issues, and people just go fucking ape shit over, and they eat it up like crazy. And they want to address the fact that a lot of it is just Russian fucking propaganda, and a lot of it is. What did you see that video of this? There's this white girl on the ground. Also, the type of propaganda Russia makes should tell you something about yourself. Did you ever see the video of the white girl on the ground with the bloody knee, and there are 2 black guys kicking her, and they have like a do-rag hanging out of their pockets and a gun in their waistband, and like, you fucking girl. They sound like they're from Uganda, right? And people are like, oh, it's like black BLM guys beating up a MAGA white Trump. And it's like the most obvious fake video ever. And it turned out to be literally from a Russian Telegram channel. And I was like,
wow.
You've never, somebody link this, please. We could watch. It's so fucking stupid.
That sounds amazing.
It's egregiously stupid. And Republicans eat it up. You can make anything up to them and they'll believe it. Yeah. It's crazy.
Wow. In your personal opinion, what do you think is the end game for Ukraine?
Unfortunately, it's probably going to be a deal where they basically have some of their sovereign territory stripped from them and then given to Russia, and then they're precluded from making any permanent deals with the EU or NATO for at least a decade.
See, I have a theory that like, if just tomorrow they just said we're going to let Ukraine in NATO, the whole thing's over and Russia can't do anything. Do you think there's anything to that, or do you think that wouldn't happen?
That would be the case, but we don't have that. We don't have the leadership and we don't have the will politically to do it anymore. It's so sad, because that's supposed to be America's job. Yeah. Like, that should be what...
Well, please.
Like, yeah, and this is the one time where we can actually be the police, right? It should have been like... Sorry, like, it should have been like day one of the invasion was like, oh, okay, well, we actually don't give a fuck about NATO, but we're going to start doing a bunch of military exercises like in their country, and if a single one of our troops gets hit, like, we're obliterating like everything. Like, it's the one time for America to like do something, and we're so cucked.
Do you think that Russia's nuclear arsenal is as functional as they want you to believe it?
It's probably functional, but they're not going to nuke anybody. If they don't want to be obliterated?
I feel like they would have already if they were going to.
Well, they don't need to, because they're... Fuck, I don't think you guys can see this on stream, and I don't care because I'm too lazy.
A troop of black... Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. A troop of black males videotape themselves viciously assaulting... Oh, wait. Actually, can I... Wait. No, I can't even bring it up, so get fucked. A troop of black males videotaped themselves viciously assaulting a tiny white female wearing a Trump t-shirt. They screamed anti-white racial abuse. The video was uploaded by Nut Shit Pappy with a message saying PA wins, or PA says fuck Trump, and calling her MAGA bitch.
That's perfect rage bait.
Yes. Wait. Hold on. Wait, I can do this real quick. Okay. Say something. Talk. Keep talking.
I'm horrified at how bad this is.
We're good. Okay. Turn the auto switcher off. Okay. Nice. They can kind of see it. All right. Okay. It's a 20-second video.
Yo, what the fuck is wrong with you?
That kick. The kick's not really selling it, is it?
Motherfucking fucking drunk racist. What the fuck is supporter? What the fuck are you doing here? Don't the fucking see you anymore.
Crip flag.
You hear me? Fuck you. Fuck Trump. Fuck all you fucking supporters. Fuck out of this place.
Oh my God.
I'm out.
just knowing it's fake and like thinking about the dialogue that this guy chose.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah, that's the
understand
interesting thing.
why being an actor is so difficult. When you hear that, you realize that's like the average person just trying to pull this together.
But like, think about what this says about who it works on, right? If you're a Republican, this is what Russian propaganda, and it worked. This is what Russian propaganda thinks you think. Okay, so black people all have do-rags. They talk like this and they beat women up for, can you see his gun? Oh, I think in one of these shots you can see like a gun in his like fucking waistband. Unless I made that up. There might be another video. But it's just like so, oh yeah, there it is, yeah. It's like,
Shit.
it's
It looks
so,
like it's in his asshole.
yeah, it's like such a fucking meme. Like, really? This is what works as propaganda for you fucking retards? It's unbelievable. And then listen to how he's talking. You fucking bitch. Like, I feel like I'm watching a shitty fucking, like a Leonardo, like Blood Diamonds from Leonardo DiCaprio. He's like fucking in the mines or some shit in Africa. Jeez.
One of the biggest things is that when it's fake, they let each other speak. They take turns speaking. And if it's real, everyone's just yelling over each other. Like typically when you see like a faked video like this, damn.
Have you ever watched an Adam Curtis documentary? Heard of this guy?
I don't think so.
He's a British guy. He does these really good historical documentaries, but he's got this whole one about how it's all just about Russian kind of like performance propaganda politics and how like, you know, I can't remember the guy's name, but basically there's this guy that's like, was sort of like a PR officer for Putin, and like his whole thing was to just create these fake moments to try and like trick the Russian public into believing certain narratives. And like that's what, like I used to love going on RT and just reading how just ridiculous like the narratives that they would paint. It's like you'd read the BBC, then you read RT and just be like, man, it's so creative the way that they're just spewing these lies.
Yeah. So, but the sad thing is, and I used to say this a few years ago, but now, unfortunately, we've passed the point on this, the event horizon. Americans would foolishly look at Russian media and we would think, I don't know, do you remember that one video early on in the Ukraine war where there was a Russian journalist and then the Ukrainians were attacking him and like a smoke thing goes off in the background and like, the Ukrainians are bombing us, the journalists, right?
I think I've seen that.
We foolishly look at that on the Russian side and we go like, Russians must be so stupid to believe in this propaganda. Like, how could you actually fall for this? But the goal was never to convince their citizens that this was real. The goal is to just convince them that everything is this stupid and fake.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now in the United States, to where I can unironically, and I've asked people on stage, and it's so crazy, I get booed for this. I'll be like, you don't trust anything that comes out of any of our intelligence agencies? And all the conservatives are like, yeah, no, fuck this. But you believe stuff that comes out of RT? You understand that this is like our enemy. Like, why would they be more credible than your own? Like, these are your own American citizens work. Like, not every CIA, FBI guy is like fucking James Bond or Matt Damon or like, gee, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's bizarre to see Elon like celebrating the death of mainstream media or whatever and claiming that X is where you should be getting your news, when like the best thing you can hope for is that the actual journalism done by places like New York Times or whatever will somehow like seep through to X, because obviously there's no original reporting being created on X for the most part. It's not like it's funding anybody doing like, you know, hardcore journalism. And I even feel like it's kind of cringe when, shout out to my boy Tommy G, but he makes merch that says like, you know, RIP mainstream media. And I'm like, I don't think that that's like
a good thing,
something that we should be celebrating, and that we're replacing that by like one man YouTuber crews or whatever. Like, you know, there's a role, like a very specific thing. There's something I get from reading the New York Times that I feel like is like very significant. I'm absolutely not like, Twitter might be more entertaining, but I'm definitely like getting something more significant from somewhere like the New York Times, especially if I want to read about something of consequence like foreign affairs and war.
But there's this weird double standard where on the conservative side, it only takes one mistake to make it so you're never credible again.
Yeah.
But when they look at their own people, they only have to say one thing right to ever be credible. They'll look at somebody like Fauci and they'll say, oh, he was wrong about masks, liar, ignoring everything. And they'll look at somebody like Alex Jones and they'll say one of his predictions was right. And even these dipshits like Joe Rogan will say, well, he's right a surprising amount of time. No, he's not. It's like it's like in a Republican world, if I were to flip a coin and call heads or tails, if I was right, they'd be like impressed. If I was Trump, they'd say, that's crazy that you called that. And it's like, well, you would never give me credit for this. Fucking 50-50 call.
Right.
And it's just, it's just insane.
Here's a question. Do you think that Elon Musk is a compromised Russian asset?
I don't know. I think that you can explain everything that he does just by his own like ego and interests. That's another crazy thing. There's so many crazy things we can't even talk about. It doesn't matter. Like George Soros was supposed to be this like guy behind the scenes who was the craziest, like manipulating everything. Meanwhile, he's like this fucking far left progressive cuck who donates to like other countries. I wish he rigged elections for us. And then you've got Elon Musk, who buys one of our largest social media platforms, okay, as a South African immigrant, borrowing money from places like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and then steals the At America account for his support of Donald Trump, and then is doing stump speeches for him. And also, by the way, is censoring bad stories like that Iranian leak that apparently the Hunter Biden censorship was huge, even though Hunter wasn't running for office. But the Iranian thing that was directly implicated was about Vance. That doesn't matter. It's just like, it's unbelievable to me that like the same people who talked about getting money out of like the corrupt lobbyists and the corrupt, financial traders in Congress. And it's like Elon Musk made more money than like 5 times the net worth of every single person in Congress in like one day. And you're going to talk to me about corruption in Congress? Is like unbelievable. I can never take anything seriously. You guys have like 9 billionaires who are in Trump's new cabinet. It's crazy.
Do you think much of the rumors that like Elon and Putin have had these like secret phone calls and stuff?
It might be true, but I mean, like, I don't need malice to explain why Elon acts the way that he does.
Yeah,
and even if there was no malice, there should still be a huge firewall. That's just an insane. It's all crazy. Yeah, whatever.
I mean, I kind of feel like I bought into the mainstream narratives about Elon. Like, there was so many articles being written about how Elon was basically destroying Twitter when he bought it. And then you fast forward to now, and it feels like he definitely has destroyed it in the sense that it feels like a right-wing echo chamber, but at least like business-wise, it feels like he fired a fuckload of employees, and the thing is basically running just as well as it used to before, granted with like less censorship, less oversight.
I feel like on that world, I've gone through this like weird arc where I feel like Democrats just they either lied or the reporting was really bad during Trump's time span as I dug more into it. But now, like, as I dig more into it and I compare it to what's happened, I realize that they were actually so much more correct and weren't even close to how correct they were about things than I ever realized. So did like Elon fire 80% of Twitter's staff? He did. Does the company still exist? Yeah, sure. But like, the bot situation on X is unfathomably horrible. It is crazy horrible. And the verification check, this, right? Verification doesn't mean anything anymore, right? Like it might just be, I would just assume it's a bot now, if I get a response, depending on what they say, even if they have that check mark. So like, does it still run? Sure. But like, is it making money? I don't know. I doubt it.
It's such a weird place now where it seems like so much more negative than any other social network. And like to put in perspective, like I know a lot of girls who have people on their team that their whole job is to basically like respond to viral tweets with their own porn to try to just get OnlyFans signups. And there's like nothing in place to stop that. But I do wonder what the 80% of the Twitter staff was really like doing at a certain point.
I'm sure there is some bloat that you can cut. I mean, like you can do that with any company, but
are you optimistic about Doge?
No. Like, this, you should know this as a business owner, that anytime somebody does this vague bullshit of like, we're going to cut waste and fraud and go line by line and optimize, like, shut the fuck up, like kill yourself. Like if you're not going to if you don't have any actual suggestions for what the fuck you want to do, like Elon comes in saying, we're going to cut $2 trillion off the budget. Meanwhile, of our like $6 trillion budget, 1.7 trillion is the discretionary spending. That's how much you can control for. And the other 4 trillion is like, it's like Social Security, Medicare, interest and shit. Like that's not discretionary. So he's talking about cutting more than the entire discretionary budget of the US. Like this is bullshit. It's obviously bullshit. It's just stupid.
What do you think of that guy in Argentina? Was it Javier Milei? That's like they're saying his thing of cutting a bunch of public service has been successful, but I don't know enough about it to judge whether that's actually going to work in America. He's
supposedly a wacky dude, but I don't know enough. If I haven't like well read into a person, I try to have an opinion. I just don't know enough about him. I'm predisposed to hate somebody like that, but I truly haven't looked into it, so I can't say.
His whole thing was having that prop chainsaw of like, I'm going to cut stuff. It's like, it kind of shows how the level of discourse that's being had over there.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that like if it's working too, like you can't really tell when it's working, and if you start to disassemble it, like at some point you're like, oh shit, like we needed this.
Like I feel like for a lot of people, when they think about cutting government spending, you just think about the DMV, and it does seem like there's some non-optimal stuff going on at the DMV. But I also have to believe that there's been people over the years who tried to figure out how to make the DMV run more efficiently, and that it's probably not anywhere near as easy as it sounds.
Well, that's because the ultra ironic part is that a lot of what people want to do is actually the exact opposite of like this emotional feeling they have. So a really good example for progressives was defund the police. It's like, okay, what do we need to do? We got to defund the police. Like, okay, why? Well, like, what does that look like? Well, we need to train them more. We need to have body cams on everybody and servers to back up all the footage. And, we need to make sure that they're equipped to deal with all these different types of situations more responsibly. We need to have medical health personnel like on standby for like mental health crises. Like, okay, this is not defunding the police. It's like 2xing the police department budget. And it's the same thing with the conservatives too. I want to cut all these government regulations. Okay, well, what is RFK talking about? What is RFK Jr. talking about? Well, he wants the FDA to regulate microplastics. He wants the FDA to regulate like the types of ultra processed things in food. He wants more regulations on pharmaceuticals. Like all of these this is more and more and more and more regulations. It's going to take more bureaucracy. It's going to take more people and more laws and more rules. And it's like this for like every single thing they say, right? You don't trust the federal officers, right? The Fedsurrection, the FBI. You don't trust these guys. Why the fuck would you trust the exact same branch, more or less, in the same part, to hire like 10,000 more immigrations and customs enforcement officers to deport illegal immigrants? These are the same guys that you said try to overthrow the country and get rid of Trump. Why would you 10x the size of this, the officers here to go? None of it makes sense. It just...
If you were in charge, what are the main changes that you think would make the most difference?
I would deport half this country immediately. Honest to God, it sounds bad, and I get clipped on this every fucking time, but I don't care. Suck my fucking cock, because none of these guys will ever debate me on it, because they know that they're wrong, and because they're treasonous, fucking losers. I'm talking to all of you conservative cucks out there that have shows that are too scared to have challenging conversations. There has to be a dramatic re-engagement with how we view news and social media. It cannot be the case that you get these leeches, these fucking parasites, these anti-patriotic, self-hating, self-loathing losers like Tim Pool or Benny Johnson or Tucker Carlson, all these guys that say freedom of speech, and they just use it to lie to everybody over and over and over again. They use it to lie with impunity and make millions of dollars doing it, while making every American like live in constant fear and not trust anything or anybody. And it's just, that's insane. That can't continue on. There has to be something to deal with that. And until that happens, you're fucked. Yeah, I think.
No, that's a good point.
What do you, I know you're gonna leave pretty soon. Can I ask you a question? I'm gonna
Sure, yeah, whatever you want.
Because I hear this used to come up a lot. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about it or care, whatever. Do you ever consider the implications, and I know people have thrown this at you a lot, about like covering like drill rap or making money off of that stuff, like from the perspective of, like being white guys who are like outside of that world a little bit? Have you ever like seriously engaged with that, or do you just like, fuck that, I don't care about this type of conversation? Or
I debate this all the time. I'm quite comfortable like debating that topic personally.
I feel like my typical response would be a little bit more emotional, of like, no, I don't give a fuck, like whatever you're talking about.
Sure.
But he could probably give a better intellectualized version of it. Yeah.
Well, I think there's sometimes it's just like I'm like a very easy target to be like, well, you're a white guy making money off of this thing, but it's just like no one ever goes at the record labels that support and distribute this kind of music and this very negative, murderous message. Very rarely are the rappers held accountable for the people that are actually committing violence and actually like broadcasting this message and convincing a generation of people that think it's cool. So for me, I feel like my real defense to that is that like I'm actually trying to bring like a very thoughtful and responsible approach to this space that's extremely lawless and out of control and negative. And I feel like the racial element is just like such a red herring that it's just like, I'm white, like, sorry. A lot of the rappers are black. But that's just is what it is. That doesn't have any bearing on like why I do what I do.
The message of his videos, if you've ever watched one, is like, I'm going to archive and like speak on all this crazy shit that happened, but this shit is bad. And this is like, this should stop. And like, we need to talk about this. And, it's notable because it's attached to these rappers who are very well known, but ultimately like, this is very bad. Like, then like frequently I have to answer for that as well, where people act like, no, like you're excited about this. Like you want this to continue. And I'm like, no, like absolutely not. Like, but I don't think that us speaking about it is going to create more of it. To me, that's just like the ultimate low IQ take. That would be like saying like, because we're speaking about a bunch of shit that Trump is doing that we think is wrong, that then we're somehow encouraging it. It's like, no, we're just like chronicling it and speaking about it and passing judgment on it.
Brandon Buckingham had a good defense to this when they were saying the same thing at him after the whole YBC Duel thing, and like he was basically saying like, blaming me for the violence is like blaming the weatherman for it being raining. I'm just here reporting on it and spreading the word and trying to give a responsible take on it. But ultimately, like, and that's why I try and trace the history back, because like a lot of the reasons for things to be so violent and messed up in these communities, if I'm completely honest about what I think the causes are, it's like you trace things back to then you've got like, Section 8 housing, the ghettoization of certain areas of America where, gangs have formed. One of the points that I find very interesting is like one of the reasons that often people say like the Crips got started in Los Angeles is because that they didn't let like young black kids into the Boy Scouts of America, and there was so much racism after World War II that like a lot of black people had taken these industrial jobs away from white people, that there was just all of this institutional racism that ultimately had this side effect of creating these street gangs of these groups that they were like scared of the police. They wanted to police their own communities, but then it became this lawless thing. And just so much of it, I feel like if you trace it back, it just goes back to like discrimination. If you trace it back long enough, I just feel like like the disadvantaged urban communities that really suffer and deal with these gang problems. It's like, I think you could trace it all the way back to slavery, to the point where essentially it's like this group of people have basically been completely marginalized and like rejected from mainstream parts of societies. Like young black kids can't join the Boy Scouts. Well, okay, what are they going to go and do with their time? And really, it's like, I try and communicate that in my videos. Like I talk about, you know, like the Great Migration and white flight, and how certain areas that became gang strongholds have kind of been like neglected by, you know, the government, or kind of like certain groups of people. And I just think that it's like, it's important to have those conversations. I think just because I'm white doesn't necessarily mean that I shouldn't be able to talk about these things. In the same way that it's like, you know, it's difficult if you're a white rapper, but you know, whether you're black or you're white, if you've got a talent for making music, you should be able to do that. I don't think anyone should be able to say, well, you can't talk about hip hop or gangster rappers because you're white. That's racism to me. But no one really wants to hear me say that.
And really, like, I feel like you're someone who has the courage to say those kind of things that oftentimes aren't really said by members of people who are like directly involved in that community. And I'm gonna be real, like, it is kind of hard for me to imagine a post-gang violence America, because it just seems like such a natural reaction to like needing to survive in dangerous environments. Because it's like, okay, let's say we were all brothers, we live in a house. Well, when we leave the house, it makes sense for us to decide, hey, if you get beat up, I'm going to go and I'm going to beat up the guy who beat you up, because we're brothers, we have to stick together. So then that gets applied to the whole block. And then that gets applied to maybe a couple surrounding blocks. And then all of a sudden it's basically a gang. And gun violence is on the table because that's the extreme lengths that our culture has basically got to. And there's another neighborhood over on the other side of town, and at some point we all go to the club and somebody from that neighborhood kills one of you guys, and then basically it's like on me, if I want to have respect within our culture, that I need to kill somebody from that area. And that's basically like the short version of how all of these gang rivalries become a thing. And it's like, I don't really know how you unwind that. I feel like in a place like LA, we've kind of seen LA be a little bit better at that. The murder rate is like down significantly from the 80s or 90s or whatever, and we see it quite frequently where you know, there's some inventive policing that has kind of been introduced in terms of these programs that basically like the cops will like intervene after somebody gets killed in a neighborhood to try to like lessen the chance of revenge killings or whatever. But it is kind of hard for me to imagine how that completely changes when shooting and killing somebody is not so uncommon. Like obviously that is going to create a rivalry that's basically going to just promote more violence. And unless you're able to like kind of stall that out or thwart that, and then maybe find a way for that to maintain as the status quo for a couple of decades, it's just like we see peace treaties attempted all the time in LA, or you know, not necessarily like real peace treaties, but like, you know, call to arms to like basically say, let's like not kill each other in this environment. Brick Baby, actually one of my co-hosts, he kind of like summed it up to me at one point. He said, like, if you really want peace in a city, the old heads in the gang basically need to make it clear that if you go and kill somebody from a rival territory, then we're going to kill you. And that's basically the only thing that would ultimately, it needs to become unpalatable enough to go and do a revenge killing that you feel like you might really die. That's like maybe the only thing that'll actually stop this tit for tat.
One of it goes into the kind of the hypocrisy thing again, also by conservatives, but it's always interesting to me that they'll look at like girls on OnlyFans and they'll be like, oh, this is fatherless behavior. Or they'll talk about like the importance of the family, or the importance of, you know, having, you know, good parents and good, you know, you got to do well in school and all this. And then they'll look at black people and it's like the first desegregated school attenders are in their like 60s. Like this is very recent history, but then for those communities, they don't apply the same thought at all. Where it's like, well, why aren't you over this yet? And it's like, bro, we're like, civil rights is like barely history. Like there are like so many people. It's very frustrating that people are always expecting like such quick fixes to that. Meanwhile, like they recognize in their own families and stuff, like, yeah, if you abandon this child or if you fuck this up, like parents will have this idea that like a kid can grow up in a neighborhood surrounded by violence and he should be able to like pull himself up and make it out of there okay. Meanwhile, like if my kid plays too many violent video games, he's gonna be fucked for life. And it's like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's yeah,
it's a vicious cycle, and I feel like it's very difficult to really see it ending. There's so many more complicated things, you know. Then you've got like institutional racism within the police. Those communities aren't being properly policed. Like if the police were really solving some of these murders and delivering justice to that community, there'd probably be less of a need for people to take that justice into their own hands, which only perpetuates this cycle of violence. And again, like, you know, you even go back, like I think one of the last peace treaties that I knew about in the whole LA gang politics was like after the 1992 riots, and that was all sparked off by like the Rodney King case, and then like the officers being acquitted, and then, you know, it was just LA was on fire for a period of time, and then the gangs kind of quieted things down. But it's like that's what it took for even a brief respite in the gang war to go on. And it's like the problem's so complicated.
And I think like a lot of people think that the solution to gang violence might be just like everybody getting along, and I think what's actually like way more likely is just like a cease to like the killing. But like they're not like trying to like be best friends. They're still going to be massively separated. It just needs to like change the cultural norms of like people killing each other.
I think, but yeah, it's also like you need like opportunities and stuff, right? Like if you want to talk about like honor culture between like millionaires and shit, like I don't like. I have a lot of money. I've got a successful business. Like I'm not looking to fucking, if some guy wants to talk shit on me, I'd knock yourself out. Like I have way more going on in my life than to, you know, put it on the line for this. But if you're somebody you legitimately don't have much else, like if I imagine, I don't know the position, but I would imagine it would feel really shitty when you have like nothing going for you in life. You don't have a family legacy. Your home might be fucked. Your education is fucked. You don't have any like good career opportunities available to you. And some guy's like, okay, well, you know, if these people, you know, jump your friend or, you know, talk shit or whatever, you just have to like let it slide. And it's like, what the fuck else is this guy going to do? What else, especially like as a man, right? Like what else do you have in life to even protect?
That's why people act like it would be so simple for Lil Durk to have just said, you know what, you killed my friend, but fuck it. I don't care. I'm going to focus on my career and my family and my business.
I'm going to go into Microsoft today and do my computer job, and I'm going to ignore all of this because I'm better than that. I want to contribute to my pension and 401k. Yeah.
But regardless of him being a millionaire, he would have basically been like the first of the lineage that he comes from to have taken on that attitude, and that attitude would have been viewed so negatively within his own community, like that it is kind of hard to imagine. And that the result is him putting out an album. Like his most recent upload on his second channel is basically about how after Lil Durk paid to get this dude killed in LA, that he basically put out a whole album with his crew rapping about it nonstop. And that's, you know, kind of bizarre to a lot of people. To us, it's not really even shocking anymore.
Well, it's like he had a whole crew of people basically just like, when are we going to get revenge for this thing? He's got all the money, he's got all the resources to basically make this thing happen. And you're right, it would have been near impossible for him to say, I'm going to be the bigger man and do this. And that's why I feel like in this video, I'm going to have a certain degree of sympathy for Dirk, because it's kind of like, look, I haven't had my friend killed in front of me and it be broadcast on camera and be mocked by the entire Twitter over my friend getting killed and me not getting revenge. So I do have a certain degree of sympathy for, like, he's between a rock and a hard place, really. Because if he doesn't do that in his community, he's kind of ostracized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Anything else?
How long we just do you even know?
A couple hours, maybe?
2 hours and 12 minutes.
Shout out to the Taliban.
Jesus.
See, I know the lore.
Yeah.
DDG.
Anything else?
Or is
DGG.
it DGG?
Yeah.
DDG is a rapper.
Is he?
DGG.
Probably no bodies, but
Probably.
a rapper nonetheless. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the guy that had a kid on Kai Cenat's stream, got in trouble, right?
He's actually got some epic bodies, like the Little Mermaid. What?
I have no clue.
Well, he had a
I
baby
laughed
with
a
the
lot.
actress who played
Okay.
the Little Mermaid.
Gotcha. Okay.
Different
now I
type of
get it.
body,
Okay, gotcha.
kind of playing on a bunch of different playing fields.
Edit in a more authentic laugh there if you put that on YouTube, August. Thank you.
Yeah, use AI to make that like a non-sarcastic laugh. Like, that's like a filter.
You need to see Destiny debate some gangbangers, man.
Yeah, I'm good on
Get
that.
some
I don't need
Bloods
to
and
get.
Crips up in here now.
I almost got murdered by house phone or
Oh
the
yeah.
whole thing. Yeah.
House phones don't catch bodies now.
He brought John Zerka as his security to the No Jumper office.
Oh, yeah, just
an
okay.
additional layer of security on top of the security that we did have anyway, but it was because Potlord and House Phone were threatening his life.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? I need the lore on that. I need the breakdown for that for sure.
It was basically you got. Well, I don't remember why you would be arguing with him, but you basically ended up insulting his mother at some point who had
He
passed.
definitely started it.
Yeah, he said some fucked
definitely
up shit.
started it.
You ended up
I never
mentioning
started it,
that.
okay?
But that's how it got to the point where they wanted to attack you. Oh no, it was because you made the slave master joke on the podcast, and then I was getting destroyed for it.
yeah,
with
I remember this.
Fat Man Mustard was the one who actually posted the clip.
Okay, yeah. So I made the it was actually similar to the question I just asked you, and I think people misunderstood the joke. Like, I wasn't joking in that, like, oh yeah, like, Adam, you're the slave master, but more so that, like, how do you feel about the fact that people like, you're like the slave master because you're a white guy, with all the the tribe and everything.
But he was like teasing me, like giving me a hard time about like, oh, like, haha, aren't you a fucking slave master? Basically, I didn't laugh. I was like, ha, very funny. We move on past it, and then that was used as evidence of like, oh, Adam invites people on his platform to basically make jokes about slavery. But then somehow that came up, I think, but I don't know. I don't remember why Yuri and all of them would be like going at him. It's a big blur.
It's the same thing.
Come up.
It was
what if your
from
brother
that,
leaves the house and you find out that your brother got insulted on a podcast from some guy? Well, I'll insult him too. That's how it goes.
Something along
There it
those
is.
lines, yeah.
Man, can't slide on Destiny. It's wrong.
No, yeah, that's why we're in this high security, high rise building right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you have a falling out with Fresh and Fit, or is that still a bridge that's open?
No, I feel bad because our content is just so different.
Now, especially.
Yeah, but no,
it's
I don't
not
think
that different. He's like the young Muslim Hitler now, right?
Well, it's different in other ways. But
I wanted to go link up with him while we were out here, but
oh shit! Oh fuck! You could have. Yeah.
Didn't really have time.
Did you single-handedly take down the red pill, or was it a group effort?
I don't know. That was always destined for like collapse.
Viewer fatigue was probably the main culprit, I would think. Just because,
No.
like, how many times are you gonna have that conversation?
Okay.
Granted, whatever is still basically talking about
You
their
missed
body
the
counts.
dynamic here. Okay, he suggested I was being humble, and you were supposed to say, "No, yeah, it was definitely a large part due to your efforts."
Oh, I should have played into that. Yeah. No, it was him. Yeah.
No, I feel like you deconstructed the red pill for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. But anyway, okay, yeah. Oh no, yeah, no. Me and Fresh and Fit are still on a personal level. We're fine.
Do you think they're gonna break up soon?
I have no idea. I don't watch to know enough what's going on, so I couldn't even predict it. I haven't heard anything though.
A lot of like YouTube commentary channels basically like pinpointing different awkward moments between them that they think will lead to them splitting up.
They got to stick together, man.
Yeah. I feel like at this point they're so into it together they kind of have to, right? Yeah.
you
And
think
then also you have to be careful because like that pinpointing moments, right? If somebody watches a podcast for an hour, like I'll find people that'll make comments like, "Oh, you can tell that this guy." I just did a show, the Adam Friedland show. And,
that was like one of the greatest. You saw it too. That was one of the funniest shit I ever seen.
yeah, it was fun, and I chatted with the dudes for like an hour afterwards. It was like a fun time. It was like all the dudes were funny, but like everybody's watching like, "Oh, you can tell that Adam fucking hates Dusty. He fucking hates this guy," and then Dusty fucking owned him here, and it's like it's just like we're just like having a good.
The funniest moment, and I don't know how he like archive or like how he puts this together in his head, but like you said something about debating with your mom, and his immediate response was, "You shouldn't argue with your mom. My mom died 4 years ago," and you're just like kind of like, like how the fuck can I even make sense of this? Yeah, that guy's funny as fuck. That was good.
Yeah, they're
was
funny
excellent.
guys.
But do you think if Fresh got killed, that Myron would slide for him?
Yeah.
I think you would.
Slide for Fresh.
I think you would. And you know what? I'd fund it. Fuck it.
I'd be the Dirk
real
of
little
that
Dirk.
Fuck it. I'd fund it. You know what? Yeah, I
For
would.
hire.
If Tim Pool can take money from fucking Russian oligarchs, then I can buy some ammunition for Fit to go and avenge his boy.
We should all chip in for some hits.
Let's not
No?
do that.
I already know who he wants.
The thing is, you could have like 10 names in your head, and you'd probably be right on any one of them. So
I don't want to glorify anybody, but
I'm trying
also,
to think
we
who.
could work on it after.
yeah, I don't want to end up in one of your videos. It's like, well, this is where Destiny talked about funding this guy, and this is when you saw as the downfall begin. So fuck you.
Yeah. No, I don't want to be saying RIP Destiny. They'll be smoking Destiny, all sorts.
Sure, yeah.
Destiny Creams. I know a porn star, that's their name. Destiny, and every time I see it, I think about him. It seems pretty funny to me.
Thanks.
Destiny Creams.
That'd be a great
I don't
car.
even know if that's our official name. That's like Freddie Gibbs' baby mom.
Oh, is that the one?
I think that might be just her name on Instagram.
You don't know if her real life name is Destiny Creams?
I just don't know if she like
guess it's probably
consistently
not.
goes by that anymore. But
Is that like an AKA name? Or that's the main name?
that's a weird name to me because it's like you're really glorifying like the creamy white shit that comes out of your vagina that I don't even know if that's necessarily considered to be a good thing or not.
It's kind of glorious.
I mean, if you're a porn star, that's kind of
It's something.
Creams is like positive. Discharge is the bad stuff, right?
Jesus.
Discharge sounds smellier than cream for sure.
Cream's like, a little half and half.
So you have a girlfriend now?
Yeah, for about a year.
A year? What the fuck? Haven't you been divorced like a year?
Yeah, that's the
You
timeline.
just immediately, boom, get into another one?
That's a high value man right there.
That's
I
sick.
wasn't supposed to, but her cat is really cute. So like, fuck.
Wow. I like cats too, so I feel that.
Yeah.
My cat died a couple years ago. I've been looking for a replacement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
RIP Tony.
Yeah.
Damn, that would I thought about this for the first time because her cat is really cute. This is an adorable fucking cat.
What kind of cat is it?
I don't know. It's a cat.
What color?
Like different colors, gray and white. He's got like little white hands.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought about like, oh, like maybe I should like buy a cat. Like that seems like it would be like having my own cat.
I'm single.
But then like if I buy a cat, but then it'll die one day. I'm like, well, fuck, that would be sad.
I mean, you got like a decade.
Yeah, but that's even more time to get upset over it.
I had a cat for like 12 years.
Damn. Look, and I bet that was a hard death for you.
Oh, very tough.
But Jesus.
I'm not a God guy, but it felt like the cat waited to die until I had my firstborn. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to stick around for 6 months and then I'm out.
Wow.
So he knew I needed some softness, someone to love.
Oh, I didn't even think about it. I could just ladder my cats. Just buy one when one is about to go. So I always have like 2 cats.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I'll
it could
think
be
about it,
kind of
okay.
stressful to have like an old cat and a young cat living together because the young cat's going to fuck with him and he's not going to be able to handle it.
He's going to die anyway.
It'll
Probably quicker
expedite the death, but
Yeah,
that's
there you
part
go.
of the transition, yeah.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get 2 at the same time, right? That's like the way to do it, apparently.
We got 2 cats and then had to like get rid of them a few months later because my niece is allergic and she couldn't come over and play with the cats over there. But my kid still years later is talking about the cats by
How many
name.
fucking nieces do you have?
Just one.
Oh, whatever.
But she like, comes over.
Oh my God. Look at this guy.
What's her name?
That's a good looking
Honey.
cat.
But it's a boy, honey.
That's such a cute cat.
Dece cat.
You want to see my cat?
Sure. Let's see it.
You want to see my dick?
Got a cute ass cat.
Sure.
Sure.
What, do you ever feel weird in the US with all the guns around? Is that...
Yeah, kind of pretty weird. I mean, it's all knives in the UK, but
Oh, he's got the big...
I know, right? So
Is this-
cute. You see my cat?
Aww.
Yeah, no, it's my first pet ever.
I feel like my last cat that was like the most epic cat, all white, fat, grumpy.
Okay.
It's just like such a funny image to like walk in on all the time. It's like kind of hard for me to ever imagine loving a cat as much as I loved him.
I like grumpy cats because it feels more earned when they're nice to you. You're like,
Exactly. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So I don't like dogs as much. It feels like a clingy girl. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
My dogs always want to cuddle, and I kind of
Yeah.
just constantly
Like I just abused you yesterday and you're still like happy
get
to
away
see
from
me.
me.
It's like, yeah. Whereas like for a cat, like I pet him too much and I have to earn his affection back for like a week.
Do you? I knew a girl back in the day who told me that her cat would be in heat, and so she would shove her fingers in the cat's vagina to shut her up. So if you don't know, cats, they get very loud when they start menstruating or whatever, and like she just told me that like as if it was the most normal thing in the world. And I've just kind of been thinking about it ever since because I've never heard of anyone else saying that. But she said it like it was like a, an old wives, not an old wives' tale, but like a home remedy. Like, oh, your cat won't shut up, so you do this.
I feel like that story would be significantly more gross if it was a male animal.
Have you ever like hurt a cat in any way? It's like they just imagine how you would have to hold it down to put a finger in it.
Jesus.
That's wild.
Well, no, you wouldn't hold it down. You just pet the back part and it would...
I never even like noticed a cat's vagina.
That's probably because you're not staring deep into there.
Yeah, but I just wouldn't even know where to look.
It's probably where a normal vagina would be, I would imagine.
But like my cat, his dick was so small, I never saw it over the years. The fur was like way too long. Even when we get him trimmed, you still wouldn't really see anything.
Yeah, my
Just wasn't
cat's
excited
tiny.
enough. Yeah.
One time I did have a girl cat at one point that I found her laying in a pool of blood and realized that she had just had her period for the first time. And that was kind of mind blowing.
Jesus. Must have been traumatic for her.
It was traumatic for me thinking that like, holy shit, did you cut yourself open on something? You're bleeding out sitting here. And then realizing like, oh, this is coming from the inside of your body. Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Crazy man. Well, hey, thanks a lot. Where do people find you? Where's the next place they should look for a thing? What do you got in the pipeline? Where do people go to find your stuff?
Yeah, Traplaw Ross on YouTube. Gonna have a big Little Duck documentary dropping soon. It's gonna be explosive.
No,
And just to be clear, you have a big doc, and it's a big thing about a guy named Lil Durk.
Yeah, a big.
You
doc
said Big
on
Lil Durk.
A
Okay,
big
gotcha.
Lil Durk.
Cool.
Big Durk is his father, by the way.
Mine is just No Jumper on YouTube and then Adam22 on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot.
Cool.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steven.
I have to walk over there to end my thing. You're still on, so don't say anything crazy, okay?
Got it.
I'm gonna use the bathroom quick.
God, I do not like people from other cultures. Let me just start weighing in on this.
I'll probably go live again in like an hour. I gotta go upstairs and say bye and all these